This episode is presented by the Visit Cedar City Brian Head Tourism Bureau. Discover the art of adventure at Utah's gateway to the parks. Cedar City is within a few hours' drive from 6 different national parks and monuments, and only 30 minutes from fresh snow at Brian Head Resort. Check out visitcedarcity.com to plan your next trip. This episode is sponsored by the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center, dedicated to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs. It provides resources and services aimed at fostering business creation, growth, and retention. The center features the Makerspace, where entrepreneurs and small businesses can have access to 3D printers, video production, and photography equipment, t-shirt printing, and more. Whether you're starting a new venture or looking to expand an existing one, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center offers the tools and guidance to help you succeed. To learn more and get involved, visit innovationcenter.cc. Hello and welcome to another episode of Explore Local Podcast, presented by Visit Cedar City Brian Head in partnership with Cedar City Iron County Economic Development. This is produced by Dallas Smith Media, and I'm your host, David Johnson, Economic Development Director for Cedar City and Iron County. All right, well, welcome to the Explore Local Podcast. We have Kacie Carballo.
Yes.
And Jessica Huntington.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, and they are with Dry Lakes Ranch Beef, located in Parowan, Utah. And if you're local, you say Parowan, not Parowan, like Zion instead of Zion. Is that correct?
Somewhat. Yes, yeah. Zion's is the worst.
Yeah, that's true. Walmart's. No. Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you on the podcast. And Kacie, you and your husband are the owners of Dry Lakes Ranch Beef, but then you also have the shop on Main Street in Parowan, right?
Yeah, we have a meat shop on Parowan's historic Main Street, and I run that meat shop along with a crew of other amazing women.
That's awesome.
And so my husband, for all intents and purposes, runs the farm and the ranch, and a group of women, badass women, I may mention, run the meat shop. And that's who I've brought with me right now. Jessica, one of our longest employed women with me today. She is one of our team leads, and she is amazing. She's going to add a lot to the conversation today.
Good, I hope so. She's going to add the flair to the conversation. Is that what it is?
Well, that's something, I'm sure. Who knows? Well,
tell us how long have you had the shop on Main Street? And well, we'll start there. How long have you had the shop on Main Street?
Not very long. It's pretty young. So we're in our 5th year only.
Well, that's pretty good. 5 years running though.
Yeah. Nice. 5 years. I think that's when you start to become profitable. Yeah. Is what I've heard about small businesses. Yeah.
I had a boss when I first started out of college and I hated this, would always tell me, you don't know what you're doing until you hit 5 years. And I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But after 5 years, you kind of get a sense of what you're doing, right?
It's starting to feel different on year 5. It is for sure. Just 5 years for the meat shop. During the beginning of the pandemic is when we opened up the meat shop.
Wow.
Yeah, the market for cattle just took a tank. We started seeing a change in the vertical integration of meat in our country, and a lot of those big meat plants were shutting down, because of COVID and protocols. And I think something like 90% of our meat is processed by the same big companies, and so because of safety and contamination, they were shutting down. And so,
oh, wow.
Just the same as toilet paper and a lot of those other commodities, there wasn't meat on the store shelves, and we had product. We had beef product. It was still on the hoof, but we had that product. And so, we decided to open up a little meat shop, and we initially decided that we would sell it as a frozen product, and really quickly realized that even though we were in a pandemic, people still wanted it fresh. They wanted amazing meat product. They wanted steaks. They wanted something special. And we had to quickly change what we thought we we're planning. And so, it went from a freezer meat shop into a fresh, never frozen specialty shop, sort of a boutique, if you will, which is what we've got now.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into that a little bit here. Help our audience understand, you said vertical integration. Help them understand what that means in business and in your business in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a bad word when you look at huge corporations, but we've also vertically integrated, and it's good for our business. When it becomes bad when huge corporations are vertically integrated, we'll look at the chicken industry, for example. Right now, the chicken industry is vertically integrated, and what that means is, say Tyson, for example, they own everything from the genetics of the birds to the grow houses where the chickens are being bred and the chickens are hatched and grown and the poultry is harvested, and then the meat is processed and the trucks are used to...
Same with Smithfield pork, which is in Utah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I guess good job, Jessica, for bringing up Smithfield pork. That's even scarier
right
because...
in Iron County.
Beaver, yeah.
Beaver, no.
Yeah, Beaver.
Sorry.
Well, it borders us, which is... That the thing that is scary about that is sometimes those vertically integrated companies get so big and so large and so valuable that they start to be owned by companies that don't have our best interest in heart, and they're not owned locally, and they're owned by people and countries that are scary. In fact, Smithfield Foods is owned by China.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thing.
You know what's really interesting to me that I never would have thought of in the vertical integration, particularly in the meat industry, is you started it talking about Tyson and said they start with owning the genetics of the chicken.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind, but it makes sense because it's like, race horses, right? The genetics are so important in breeding them to do a good race horse or a show dog or something. But I never thought about that with our food product, the genetics of the meat, whether it's poultry or beef or pork or whatever. It's almost like owning the copyright to your brand, right? And maybe that is part of the brand, owning the genetics. That's so fascinating to me.
Right. Fascinating, but could be scary at the same time. It's who has control of that, and do you trust them or not?
Yeah. Well, we won't go too far, conspiracy theorists, but
I'm trying real hard not to.
Yeah, there you go. But I get what you're saying, and because there's this real big movement over the last several years to eat more holistic, more organic, more local, right? Range fed, open range chickens and beef and things like that, rather than just going through these processing plants. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why I wanted you to kind of talk about when you said vertical integration. I knew that was a key thing because, when people go to Dry Lakes Ranch Beef, your shop, it's like turning on the water. They don't realize all the things in the background that happen to get the water to your faucet. And so this is a great opportunity for people to understand that your business is more than just a storefront, right? Mm-hmm. And on that note, so you also own the actual ranch that supplies the beef to your shop, right? I don't know if you want to maybe dive into the ranch a little bit more and the elements that go with that. And it's totally open-ended. You just flow with whatever you want to say about the ranch and how it gets to your shop.
Okay. My husband and I.
What's your husband's name?
My husband is named Reyes Carballo.
Okay.
And it's an interesting story. He doesn't actually own Dry Lakes Ranch LLC. It's actually in a legacy project.
Oh, really?
Yes. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's a protected ranch now, and it will never be developed.
It's historic.
Yeah,
really.
It's a very special.
So who owns it then?
A special place
in a legacy project. Would it help our audience understand what that means?
So that means that it is preserved. It's sort of like a preserve.
Okay.
And
like a national park or something,
similar,
sort of, but
yeah,
for ranching.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it can never be changed. It can never be altered. It will always be as it stands. It will be used as a ranch and can never be subdivided. It can never be altered or turned into something
else.
Yeah.
So is it federally owned and your husband leases the land?
Yeah. Right now it's owned by Dry Lakes Ranch LLC. And I don't know what the period is. I don't know if it's a century or what it is. And then it will be controlled by, I don't know I don't know what the time period is.
That's interesting.
But yeah, right now we run it as Dry Lakes Ranch LLC, and it runs as a ranch. And
how long have you guys been doing that?
So we've been doing that. My husband has been doing that for about 20 years now.
Okay.
And before that, it was Mitchell Herefords, and it was owned by the Mitchell family since 1873. So not very long after Parowan was established. Parowan was established in 1851. And so, yes, the very people that settled Parowan are some of the people that started that ranch.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the grazing land, borders Bryan Head. It's important that be preserved and undeveloped.
The grazing rights and everything.
Yeah. Because as you all know, everybody enjoys Bryan Head and Parowan Canyon, and it would be for the best, in my opinion, if it were left untouched and left alone to grow our food.
Yeah.
And support the industries, that it does up there in Bryan Head too.
Right.
So one question that I have for you, it's a bit of a digressive one, but we're talking about the ranch is, I worked out in Florida for a few years, and there's a lot of cattle ranching out there. And one of the ranches that I kind of did a tour with talked about the distinctions and the history behind grass-fed versus corn-fed, and in some circles, I think the general population has no clue of the difference. In some circles, it's very controversial. Some people are, I don't care one way or another. But I remember him distinctly saying that the corn-fed essentially makes them bigger and more sweet tasting, things like that. I don't know if you have thoughts, want to share kind of maybe the distinctions, if you know much about that. But to me, that was fascinating. And I didn't really know those distinctions, but it was cool to kind of learn about, because you hear a lot of health buffs say, buy grass-fed beef, right?
Yeah.
But why is that?
There's a lot of buzzwords.
Yeah, buzzwords. So what is there really a distinction in your opinion? And if so, why is it important to know about?
There's a large distinction, and I think it depends on where you are in the area, in the country, what area you're in. So in the Midwest, they could easily raise a beef and do it grass-fed, and you'll have a fairly good animal that probably was able to sustain itself and develop some fat on it. But in our area, if you were to grass feed an animal to the point where it reached an age where it was considered a beef animal, it lacked nutrients, and there was probably some months of near starvation.
They're basically malnourished. If you because we're in a high desert, right? With cold climates.
Right.
And the grass isn't quite as lush here as it is in the Midwest or out east, right?
Right. It from a rancher's perspective, it almost upsets me when there are ranchers pushing this idea of 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, because there's so many consumers that want an amazing product, and they're willing to pay top dollar for something that they're going to, especially if they're buying freezer beef, a whole or a half animal, and they're willing to spend thousands of dollars, and they are gambling with a lot of money, a big investment, and they come home with something that in a lot of cases has been inedible. They come into our shop and they just say, I have a freezer full of a product that I can't eat. And in some cases they say that their dog won't even eat, and it
Is it
breaks
just because
my
it tastes more
heart.
gamey or something?
Tastes gamey. It's difficult to chew. You know, the mouthfeel is hard. You know, it's difficult for them
A
to
lot
eat.
goes into a lot of it is how it's butchered.
Sometimes that Jessica brings up a good point
be.
there. Yeah, you've got to be difficult.
Even if it was good beef, you know.
Yeah.
Ours is dry aged, so that's a big step. But yeah, we get a lot of people that come in to buy things just to get them through what they've bought, and then we find out they paid the same that they could pay for ours. So
Interesting. Well, tell me. So, what is the balance of feed that you guys provide your cattle?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we let our cattle graze on native pastures up on dry lakes, up on the ranch that borders Bryan Head, like Jessica said. In fact, that was one of our taglines I wanted to mention is "Hello, Bryan Head, we share a fence line." You know, because matter of fact, some of our ranch is now owned by Bryan Head. We traded property with them
I see.
decades ago because some of our land was better suited for skiing and
hey, thanks.
their
And vice versa.
yeah, Jessica
love
loves to snowboard. And some of their
I love
land,
skiing.
After this, I'll make a
Nice.
some of their land was better suited for grazing cattle. So yeah, we did a little trade.
Well, it's good to recognize that because some landowners are so dead set of I'm not giving up a lick of my land. But sometimes a trade might actually help you as a landowner better accomplish the mission of what you're trying to do, right? And that's not always the case.
Right.
And I don't want to dive into the land issues, but sometimes it's a smart business approach to do that. And if it's mutually beneficial, then why not? Especially if it's going to benefit us locally in more ways than one. So,
Yeah.
and that's digression from the question of, you know, what's the balance of your feed, but that's an interesting point. But so is yours, you said is a lot of the natural grasses, and
Yeah.
do you supplement too, or?
Yes. So a lot of the feed that our cattle will grow on, our beef steers will grow on, is going to be native pastures for a lot of their life, especially during the growing season. When those plants are not in dormancy, they're on native pastures. But then we also plant things like barley, wheat, oats. We plant nice alfalfa. We do corn. Both our alfalfa and our corn is also used by local beekeepers. And matter of fact, we sell honey, and the honey that is sold in our shop is the beekeepers. Who is it, Jessica?
Kim Lovell,
Yeah.
Kim and Sharisa Lovell.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A lot of that honey that we have in our shop, those bees have pollinated our crops. And so it's really neat. You'll see when our corn is being pollinated by those bees, it's just beautiful to look across the corn and see so much of a buzz, literally and figuratively. It's just a beautiful sight because, you know, it really comes full circle in our shop.
The bees and everything works together.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
It's a different version of the birds and the bees. So.
Yeah,
It is.
alfalfa is a
So much
beautiful
more delicious.
crop.
Tastes good when it's done.
Yeah, that's true. Alfalfa is a good crop too. It gets a bad reputation, but alfalfa is a beautiful crop for pollinators too.
Yeah.
Anyways, we use that as a feed for our cattle, and not only as a hay, but our cattle also graze on those fields that we plant ourselves too. So we use that as part of their finishing ration. We use a powdered corn. We use pre and probiotic. We have a mineral blend, and yeah, we give some really great vitamins to our beef cattle, and water. A really clean, beautiful water source is important for beef cattle.
Yeah. It's awesome.
One thing that I'd like to say about cattle and their feeding is a lot of people want to assume that our cattle are always grazing and frolicking in the meadows.
And meadow's freezing right now.
I love how you said, I just got this picture of like Bambi frolicking with Thumper in the meadow.
It's like that in the summer. Very much happy
Yeah.
as can be.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that in the high desert regions of southern Utah, it's just not logical to do that. It's not good for the land. And
It's not very nice.
Well, it tears up the land.
perfect. We are conservationists first and foremost with our ecosystem. Dry Lakes Ranch is very concerned about our ecosystem. That is something that we have been concerned about since our inception. And so soil preservation and preservation of the plant life from the root up is vital and important to us. And so we maintain that there's certain times of year that the cattle need to be pulled off of the land and kept in corrals and fed to preserve the quality of our topsoil, to preserve the vitality and the life of our native plants, and that's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah. A great comparison to that actually is for people that are avid hikers or mountain bikers. You see a lot of signs when you go out, stay on the trail. Also for mountain biking and hiking, when it's wet and snowy, you stay off the trail and you just don't go on the trail or those areas because it tears it up more. Right. And so it's kind of from what I understand, kind of a similar concept of making sure the native plants and that topsoil can grow as they need to. So when spring and summer comes, there's good grass to feed on, right?
Yes.
That's the idea.
Yep. Riparian areas are delicate areas. That's exactly right. And during the winter, there's a lot of damage that can be done when it's starting to thaw out and it's wet. Roots are delicate.
Yeah.
Springs are delicate when it's wet, and it's just
farmers are conservationists. They really know more about our native lands than a lot of people. So these guys are actually doing projects in coordination with the DWR, right, on our rangeland.
Thank you, Jessica.
We showcased it on our anniversary, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We did. So we love the land.
I'm glad she brought that up. Yeah, we did. We did a really great project this last June. Every June we do something special with our customers. And this past June during Pollinator Week, we invited our customers out to our winter permit, and we did a big project. It was almost $1 million project that we did with the NRCS and the Division of Natural Resources, the Division of Wildlife Resources, and we did a habitat restoration project, and it benefited the Utah mule deer, sage grouse. There was a desert snail that is not found in very many areas, but it is found out there. It benefited the pollinators in that area. Anyway, we were able to take out a really invasive plant species and restore the watershed, restore some topsoil, plant more beneficial plants that are out there, and help with wildlife populations out there. I mean, it also benefits our ranch, but
there's a bit more to it than just grass fed. Huh?
Yeah,
it's very true.
Benefits public land in ways that the government can't do alone.
It all ties in together, the hunting, the whole ecosystem, the farming, the pollinating. Gotta keep the bees alive.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because the farmers, ranchers, responsible ranchers are taking care of the land, right?
They are.
And, there's some of those bad actors out there, as in any industry, right? But for the most part, you guys care about the land. I mean, just what you're talking about of, hey, you got to keep them off during some of the time during the winter. Otherwise, it's just going to tear it up and it won't be good for them or anyone after the fact.
Not only that, but they're literally standing in the highway on the way to Brian Head. If they were there in the winter, probably dozens of people would hit them and maybe die.
So it's interesting that you say that too, because
we manage them very well, not just for our own benefit, but public safety.
Yeah. So where I lived prior to coming here, I was in southeastern Utah in the mountains, and the property that I owned, we had ranch cattle all the time roaming and coming through. And, a lot of the ranchers had agreements with, I think, Forest Service and others, right? I don't know if you guys have similar types of agreements. And, they have to maintain so much fence throughout the year and things like that. And you could always tell the difference between the responsible ranchers and the ones that weren't. It was open range, but when cattle were going across, multiple acres of multiple properties that they shouldn't be on, right? Away from the forest, you'd call the rancher, and the great ones would be like, "Oh, let me come get it. I need to repair a fence
we
here."
We are the ranchers moving them.
Yeah,
that's how you know.
But then the annoying ones, I should say, were the ones like, "Well, I have an open range. I can do what I want," and what I'm getting at is that conservation and that responsibility is so important. Those bad actors can ruin it for those that are trying to really be responsible, right? And quite frankly, if they're not meeting their responsibility as ranchers, Forest Service can always pull their permits. They don't like to do that, right? And that's kind of a random digression I wanted to get in, but it's another area where, like I was comparing how water comes to your faucet. Like there's little things that are important, like preserving the land, being responsible with the permits that you have. Those are really vitally important to you as a rancher, right? And maintaining that. So I'm blabbing a little bit. I don't know if you have thoughts kind of on that along those lines too.
Watershed too.
Right.
Like our rangeland is our watershed, right? Parowan Canyon. It's all very important.
You need to, preserve it and protect it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's two trains of thought there. And I do believe, there's ranchers need to work really well with the public, because the public is our number one champion. Right. And they are our consumer as well.
Right.
And so it's best to have a good open line of communication. It's best to have a friend rather than a foe. But at the same time, a lot of those rights, those grazing rights, were there prior to the government agencies that now control them.
Yeah, right.
And so that's where a lot of ranchers have a hard time with some of the regulations and the rules that are set down on them.
Because we didn't used to have this before, right?
Yeah. And they're starting to be controlled by people who don't have the rancher's best interest or even the land's best interest in heart. In mind.
Controlled by people that have never even been here.
Yeah.
Or seen a ranch before. Yeah.
And sometimes it gets to the point where they're almost using a non-use thought process, and they're looking for ways to kick out not just ranchers, but any land use. And the ranchers are the first people to say, whoa,
wait a minute,
this isn't looking right, and we need to fight for this, and so they're the first ones to ruffle their feathers and say, I'm going to fight back. And
what's your livelihood?
Maybe they're a little gruff, and in the way that they do it, we kind of can be gruff, farmers and ranchers.
Well, sometimes you have to be, right?
Everybody likes to watch the show Yellowstone. It's not exactly like that here.
We fight back.
If you like eating steak, prepare to have a little bit of fight. But they have to, because for our farmland in Utah and the United States is now diminished to its lowest level ever. So we have to.
Well, if you enjoy a steak at your fancy Vegas or New York dining establishments where you can't see a native grown tree for miles, you need to understand the importance of these areas that have these ranches and these native areas where we actually have the grazing land where we have the mountains that
This is where it's coming from.
Exactly.
Where the people that our livelihoods depend on it.
Well, one of the things that I love, I know a lot of areas do this, and actually that ranch that I was mentioning that I saw out when I was in Florida, the local chamber of commerce there, they would take businesses and individuals and do like kind of what I do to recruit businesses. They would take just residents and other business owners on site tours around the area and take them to places like a ranch or a manufacturing facility or things to help the public better understand. Because most people, like, for example, like this third time I said it, from the water at your faucet, people don't understand all the things that happen in the background that have to come together to get that. And in your terms, it would be, from the field to your plate, right? In essence.
We get a lot of requests actually for people to come and see the farm.
Yeah.
And we do have a farm, right? But we also have open grazing, which hundreds of people drive past every day.
Yeah.
It would be nice. I mean, and I'm not the farmer, but in my opinion, we're just really busy trying to keep our shop open. Mm-hmm. Like, it would be nice to be able to take people's kids or myself even and go and do, but we're just working really hard to do what we're doing. But people do go to the rangeland every day. It borders Brian Head,
Yeah.
I'll let you carry on because you're the one that actually owns the farm.
That's true.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to take the time to take people down there, but we're trying really hard to keep doing what we're doing and keep food in our shop every week,
Right.
But we're very transparent in everything we do. So we certainly encourage that because people should know where their food is coming from.
Right.
But you own it. So.
And the reason why I bring this up is not so much, I mean, people are going to have political perspectives.
You can see it growing out there in the field, our crops that we feed. So I think that's pretty cool too. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I bring this up is, people, my bringing this up is regardless of political perspectives, but just understanding that from the grass to your plate on cattle or whatever it is helps open eyes and helps create better conversations.
It does.
And helps bring people more together rather than divided on a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. But really my intent is I want people to be informed on what it is that Dry Lakes Ranch is doing and how it is kind of a poster child for a lot of ranchers, right? And what you're trying to do. Right. And what you're trying to accomplish.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of American ranchers do the same thing. In fact, most cow-calf operations in the United States do exactly what we did prior to COVID, which is they grow their calves to about to the age of weaning on native pastures, whether it's on private or on public land. Forest Service is public land, BLM is public land, and then private land. And a lot of that would be on mountain lands, so high pasture lands, and then they wean their calves and they send them to feedlots. And I know that feedlots have a bad reputation, but that's where the cattle are fed higher calorie diets, and that's when they get their marbling and their fat that makes their product tender and delicate and rich with that mouth-watering, beautiful taste, texture, the mouthfeel, that is just buttery.
That
true. It's a thing.
Is the most beautiful segue into me wanting to go now to talk about the shop.
We love it at the shop.
Fresh
we
beef.
love to talk about
it's like, okay, I have my kids, I have daughters and a son, but my daughters have always surprised me because there was a time where so dad's in charge of Sunday meal, the kids, have like assigned meals throughout the week, and my wife mostly does a lot of the meals throughout the week, but dad's in charge of Sunday meal. And every week, my girls would be like, "Are we having steak?
Yes.
Are we having steak?"
We love that.
And I love it when we go to a restaurant and my wife or the kids are like, "Your steak's better," and
Yay.
Anyways, but I had this vision when you're talking about the buttery. That was just so.
See, even your kids get it. Huh?
Yeah, they do.
You brought them in for free steak.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I got to a point where I'm like, okay, guys, Dad's bod needs a break from steak. Anyways, so tell me. Well, I guess before we go into that, tell me. You mentioned you've had the shop open for 5 years, but you do, well, there's a lot of aspects at the shop. Actually, why don't we start with, we've talked about the grazing. We've talked about, how the cattle get to us high level. When they come to your shop, do you do all the butchering at your shop and are selling it there direct, or is there another step before it gets to your shop? Or is your shop where you're doing a lot? I mean, obviously there's a butchering.
We get that question a lot, and I just have to add, because we're right on Main Street, right? Like historic.
Well, you're not bringing the cattle into the back of the shop and butchering it there.
Nobody ever sees it.
Yeah. So, but that's why I'm bringing it up, is so people understand. Okay, so now you've gone from the field, and before we get to the shop, there's the butchering process. So, and then why don't you talk about that and then go into what it is you do at the shop behind the scenes, and then we can talk about all the fun stuff the shop has.
About 6 women every Wednesday night unload thousands of pounds of it out of the trailer after Kacie goes and gets it from Springville Meats, which is the only part we don't do. The butchering vacuum seal that comes back to us in these beautiful 50-pound boxes, and we get it out of the truck and restock the store. Hey,
women are buff.
It's awesome.
Right? You're gonna haul that meat.
I wasn't when I got there, but
I worked in a butcher shop up in Logan when I was in college, or my first part of college, and yeah, it's a whole different world. Yeah. So then you take it from Dry Lakes Ranch, the cattle, and you send it up to Springville Meats, and they do your processing.
There herself.
Yeah.
So you load the trailer, haul the cattle up.
On Tuesday and Wednesday.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Every Tuesday we take beef cattle up north, and we do that because we chose who we wanted to do this. They're
the best butcher. Yeah. They dry age properly. I've walked through there myself, and it's just a really beautiful facility, and that's part of why it tastes so good.
So talk about that. When you load them up, you take them there, and what's your process there, and what's their process?
So this is an important part of how things are done, and the reason we chose who we chose is because if the animal isn't cared for every step of the way, there can be a change in how the quality of our product is received by the consumer.
Right.
If it's not done properly, the texture, the color, the experience for the
flavor,
consumer,
right, too, right?
will be
we also,
altered.
Kacie, I know, and Ray, we believe in the Temple Grandin theories. Nature is cruel. We deserve it. We owe it respect. Kind. These are not just they're not just animals, they feed us. They deserve, when they're processed there in Springville, it's in just about the most humane way you can kill something.
Butcher,
I've seen it. So that's really important to all of us that work there. We love animals, we love our animals. Their lives are important to us. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Nature is cruel. We don't have to be.
Thank you. Right. I messed it up.
No, you did perfect.
But we believe that.
Yeah, we haul them in a calm manner. We unload them in a calm manner. The cattle are rested before they are harvested. It's in a facility that is state of the art and clean and swift, and not to be confused with the huge company Swift. I mean, the process is quick.
This is not a large scale slaughterhouse. They do go there and they die.
About how many animals at a time do you process?
It depends on the time of year. if we're at a holiday weekend, then it's going to be 6 or 8. But if it's a slow time of year, then we're doing 4 per weekend.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes, but sometimes during the busiest time of year, we're at 8 or more, and sometimes we'll go through the product of 12 beef in a weekend. So our business model is set up to be first come, first serve. So on Tuesdays, we take up the beef cattle. My mom and I haul them up. And then Wednesday, we'll go back up with a commercial refrigerated trailer and pick up the product that had been dry aging for 2 weeks. And we'll pick up those boxes of product. It's all been cut the way that we wanted it cut by our craft butchers. Springville Meats.
Comes in those perfect little steaks your daughters like that they want to eat on Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the only part we don't do.
Help our audience understand, what is dry aging? You've mentioned that a few times. I hear it all the time, but what is it? And why does that make a difference?
It's a very special and delicate process that has to be done properly. It can be done improperly. And that's where a lot
Improper is where you see the YouTube videos and they're chopping through a carcass full with like green mold. That's improperly, in my opinion.
Yeah, humidity plays a role, airflow, temperature, contamination plays a role. What it allows the meat to do is lose a lot of that moisture. So if you are buying from a source that doesn't dry age, then you're buying a lot of water weight. So with our product, you're not buying water weight. You're buying just a beef product that is going to be richly flavored and beautifully marbled and ready to sear.
Yeah.
And it's going to be broken down by enzymes. It's going to be...
When you cook your hamburger and a bunch of water doesn't come out, that's because of the dry aging.
That's right. Yeah.
How long does the dry age process? How long does the dry age process?
10 days, right?
Yeah, 10 days to 2 weeks.
Days. Yep. Some people do more, and in my personal opinion, I don't like much after 10 days. Even we do more than 10 days.
We'll do a specialty. We'll do a specialty long dry age for some cuts, and you'll have to pay more in the shop. We'll do
a deeper, richer flavor. But the dry aging,
and it's kept at a specific temperature and humidity level.
Yes.
What kind of temperature and humidity level? Do you guys know?
Yeah, it's kind of a top secret.
Oh, it's top secret. Okay, Springville.
Yeah. It's
gotcha.
Something I don't want to.
But what's the range that it has to, in general, in the industry, if you're dry aging? What's the range of like a temperature you have to keep it at?
Multiple coolers, right?
About 28 degrees.
That's the point. Is there's multiple coolers for varying stages of the process.
So it's below the freezing point, right? So that it doesn't.
Yeah, you'd think about 32 degrees is the freezing temperature, but meat does not freeze right at 32 degrees.
Oh, that's
it's closer to 25 or 24 that meat actually freezes.
So you've got to keep it enough so you're not hitting a freeze, but you're still keeping it within a range where the meat is going to be preserved, right?
And we
not
call that
contaminated.
flash frozen, right?
Yeah.
Which makes a big difference why everything that comes out of our store tastes like that, because if you're not freezing it in a freezer, that's what ours are, -10. They're not like in the store. They're sometimes thawing and refreezing and thawing, and that's not good for meat.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It affects the taste and the quality.
If we freeze our product, we're freezing it in one of our 2 freezers. One is kept at -10, and we just got a new freezer that goes to 20 below zero.
Wow!
And it does it quickly, and then that product is preserved in its freshest state at a temperature so cold that it is going to be like it was just cut. Especially with that vacuum seal.
Yeah. And it's nice for travel. It helps for a lot of people to come and stock up and travel home.
I was going to say frozen much longer.
Yeah.
So do you just have a couple walk-in freezers then at your shop?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's a great segue from now we've talked about you've taken it from the grass to the processing. Now, what's your process, I guess, in receiving to when you sell it to the customer? Is there anything else you're doing in between when it's in the freezer at your shop to then, or you?
No, we leave it there.
So the meats are completely cut
storage.
into all their cuts.
They
then,
come in
when they
vacuum
come to you.
seals from our craft butcher in boxes. We unload them on Wednesday night, every Wednesday night. So we have everything all restocked. And then our process is people just walk in and we say hi and ask them how we can help them and start showing them
fresh.
Fresh meat. That is a big differentiation. There's not everywhere can you just buy in and walk in and buy fresh. And we mean fresh weekly, you know. That's and fresh to the touch. It's not frozen.
Right.
You know, it hasn't been frozen. You can buy frozen, but we offer fresh and flash frozen, which is important because people can come in and buy their dinner, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And they do.
So help me understand that. You've talked about fresh, but then you were just talking about the flash frozen -20.
Yeah.
So when I go in and I buy beef there, am I getting fresh just refrigerated in the vacuum seal?
Yeah, if you buy it from the refrigerator behind us where we're standing in there in the shop, that's all fresh, never frozen.
Okay.
We sometimes put frozen things in there just as stock.
Right.
But that's fresh.
But you also have people come and buy some of the frozen product as well,
we
right?
sell a lot out of that shop. We have multiple freezers, bulk purchasing. So you can buy frozen if you choose to, but you can just buy fresh as well.
Yeah. Tell me who a lot of your customer base is. I've heard people are driving up from Vegas and all these other random places and locally, of course. Right. So talk to me about like your customer base and where that's at.
We have a lot of people that come from our area. A lot of customers are from Cedar City.
Our locals.
Surrounding areas, yeah. Milford, Beaver, Bryan Head, Duck Creek. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said that like a choir. You're singing it. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. We do have a lot of customers too that travel to us from Vegas and California. And I'd like to go back. So
sure, yeah,
many of our customers come in to buy fresh product, steaks and chuck roasts and things like that for the weekend. But we also sell out of those freezers. People are buying half and whole beef.
Okay,
so that's what they're coming to purchase.
They want to buy half a cow or whatever.
And we never sell cows.
Oh, beef. Sorry, cattle. You can tell I'm not a rancher.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned it.
So I was going to ask about that earlier. It's so funny because I had a buddy that I was roommates with, and he did ranching up in. Well, I can't remember where it was. I think they did ranching and dairy. I want to say it was like in the Camas area or something like that. But he would go on and on about the difference between a cow, a heifer, a steer. Tell people a little bit difference. My mistake was a good mistake because I actually wanted to dive in to help people understand what the difference is. Because, when kids eating a hamburger, you always say, oh, it's cow. Because they understand cow,
I didn't know
right?
any of this before I went there. I was
so why don't you...
What are you talking about?
If you've got somebody selling a cow,
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, so give us the 1 minute distinction on the difference between the different, I guess, animals and what is actually our steak and what is actually our hamburger.
Okay, a cow is a female, an aged female who has had calves. So her body has been depleted of nutrients on a cycle year after year after year, every year that she's had a calf. Mm-hmm. And so although a beautiful animal and one that we have reverence for, she's not going to be an animal that we would ever serve to a consumer as a prime beef. We only utilize a steer, which is an animal that we raise specifically
makeup or
it tastes better a lot.
It tastes better, yeah.
So is steer it's only is female?
Nope, a steer is a male that has been castrated.
I thought it was all male. Steers are male.
Yep.
So the beef that we eat, it's all male.
Males.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Beef is also a term that is used for the meat product. And so In the industry, you can go and buy beef, and it can be anything from an old cow to an old bull. It can be almost anything. But in our shop, we only raise and harvest beef steers.
Yeah.
So you know that distinction when you come into our shop.
Well, I know like some steak houses are all about, and they really advertise, or even burger places, we only serve Black Angus beef here. Is that also
a big thing? The most important thing is, I guess, easiest, not most important thing to understand.
the clearest like distinction?
Most
you're saying
people get their meat from big processing companies, which are all putting out the same product, which may not even be from the United States. It may be imported. They can pack it here and they can label it as a United States product.
Interesting.
So then everybody else buys from the big packers.
Or scary
and it
at the
comes
same
on
time,
the truck and they unload.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what breed it is. It's where it came from. And when you buy ground beef at the store, you might be eating 300 carcasses from who knows where. So when you buy ours, you're getting 4 to 8 steers harvested that week. We cut steaks, we cut roasts, and then we grind. We take out the organs. The USDA takes the brain, and you get ground beef.
Right.
So you know exactly where it comes from.
Interesting.
Which is steakhouses, grocery stores there. And of course, I don't know where everybody gets everything, but this is just how America works, right? The store-bought meat is all coming from the same places, and that's why it's untrustworthy. And that's where these big outbreaks, like when they say Walmart has recalled their ground beef, that's why. It's because it's all coming from the same place, and it gets contaminated can get contaminated in various stages of processing, from the cattle facility itself to the gas flushing.
Wow.
That's why it's so unique what we do, is because you know exactly where it comes from.
You have educated me so much further. I thought my one friend before, he'd always talk about these different distinctions. So then I'm going to digress one more time.
They make it confusing.
Yeah. And so I'm going to digress one more time. And then I really want to get into the shop itself and the boutique itself, because it's so fun inside your shop.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then if you're raising steer, which are male, right, to be the steak and the beef that you provide, this is a really naive question. Clearly you have females, right?
It's a good question.
That are breeding. So what do you do? You're separating the males and the females, the steers, and then what do you do with the female calves?
We use those as replacements
as cows to breed.
Yep.
Okay, so
or sell them to other ranchers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it generally like a 50-50, or does it kind of steer more, no pun intended, wrong kind of steer, steer toward more steers? Yeah. I don't know, because you can't, genetics nowadays, you never know. Like, could you make it so that you have more steer than...
Yeah, I think you probably could. You could probably sex the semen, but we're not, we're more, we're
like
natural.
That.
Yeah.
All natural.
It's about 50-50.
Okay, gotcha.
As we can, huh?
Well, and that's another profit for you as you're selling the female calves, right?
You probably could.
That's not what Ray is as a farmer for.
Yeah.
He likes farming.
Yeah. And you can feed out heifers too. As a matter of fact, they marble beautifully.
Okay, what's the difference between a heifer and a cow?
A heifer has never had a calf. She's just a young
So it's a female cow that's not yet calved.
I really love heifers. I think that they're beautiful animals. And like I just said, they marble beautifully. But one thing that we found at the beginning when we were starting to feed out heifers, because it wasn't always just steers that we fed out, is that as they went through their cycle, because they were starting to cycle, as they matured, is that when they went through their cycle and they would have a surge of hormones, that they would start to, well, maybe that, I don't know if this is okay for podcast or not, but
I can edit it.
Keep it clean, but I think it's fine. I think what you're talking about is, it's educational. And that's why I like to go in these digressions, just people don't know this background, and it's so great for people to know the background. So you can temper it as much as you think is appropriate for the kids out there on the audience.
So it's just it's a natural response. Other heifers will sense that heifer is having a cycle, and so they do something called standing heat, and that heifer would go into a standing heat cycle, and the other heifers would sort of jump on her back. And what will happen is the heifer that is in standing heat will have bruising on the top
see
line.
It on the stakes sometimes. Sometimes the males do it too, and you can see an injury through on the meat.
So on the top line of her back, she'll have bruising, and that is where the most valuable cuts are.
And so you have to kind of protect it.
Yeah. And those most valuable cuts would include like the New York strip, the sirloin, and if those other heifers that are in the same pen get far enough up her back, that would include ribeyes too, and that's where the most profit comes from.
Okay.
And so we stopped using heifers because the only way to eliminate that would be to give them a hormone reducing implant,
which you don't want.
We refuse to do.
Basically, it makes sense as a retail meat shop to stay open. We have to make money.
So the steaks you buy at Walmart or some of these places, it could be a heifer or it could be a steer. Or a cow. Or a cow.
It's more likely older animals.
And again, maybe not even the United States of America, to be honest.
But it's not too far-fetched to say that a steak that you buy could be cow. Yeah. It could be heifer. It could be steer. Okay. But Dry Lakes Ranch beef only does steer for some of the reasons that you guys just went into. So that's really fascinating to hear, and why maybe some of the distinction with the flavoring that we were talking about earlier makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Did you want to, one of the things I wanted to add, and then I want to go into the shop, talk about your shop and the boutique side. Since we're on steaks still, tell me your favorite cut. Ribeye. Okay. And I'll have you dive a little more into it. Your favorite cut and why, and how you cook it to ensure that it has the best flavoring preserved when you cook it. Because you can lose a lot of flavoring if you cook it wrong, right? So how about it? Tell me how you cook your ribeye.
Okay. So
first, why ribeye?
Ribeye is my favorite because you can get fat in every bite, which is flavor, right?
I'm all about the fattiness on it.
Our fat is healthy. It's good for you. So I like a lot of fat in my meat, and I just pan fry it with a cast iron pan.
So you sear it first?
From our shop. I just sear it right on the pan. I would buy a regular cut, just 1 inch thick ribeye, and turn my pan up to high. Put some tallow or butter in there, probably tallow because you can heat it higher. Garlic, pepper, salt, and then just cook it for about 1 to 2 minutes aside. And then it will be very rare, and I will eat it. That's not my. I really don't have a set recipe, but I cook everything at home myself because I can, and I don't have a grill or someone else to cook for me. So I adapted to cooking my own steak and teaching my kids how to do it because it's healthy and it's important to eat. But ribeye is really fatty. It keeps you full longer. Filet is lean. It costs more. I love filet. It's delicious. But if I didn't work there, I would never buy filet. No offense. Like, ribeye is affordable. In fact, we just had a sale. But there's a lot of other cuts too that are almost as good. There really is nothing quite like ribeye, though.
Yeah. Ribeye is usually one of my go-tos.
But there's a lot of other stuff in there that's pretty dang good that doesn't cost that much.
How about you, Kacie?
The business part of me should say a great expensive cut that I make the most profit off of. And I have to say, some of the most profitable cuts are the higher end steaks. And the reason we're able to make more profit off of those is because we can demand a higher price point. And the reason we can demand a higher price point is because they're rare.
Oh yeah.
And there's only a few of them, on a few
beef. Of those cuts.
Like a fillet, there's only 2 tenderloins, and of those 2 tenderloins, you can only get maybe 16 or 18 good steaks off of those to a tenderloin. And so, yeah, they fetch a hefty price point. But to be honest with you, my favorite cut off of a beef is ground beef.
Really?
Is that
Our
ridiculous?
ground beef is it's a beautiful product.
So you'd rather a burger than a steak is what you're saying.
ground beef.
Last night we went to Brian Head and had a Dry Lakes burger. They just started serving our
I was going to
burger.
ask if they were doing that. You say you share a
It
fence.
cost $26. I've never paid $26 for a hamburger in my
just get
life.
a
It was
little-
worth it.
Have Springville bring a
Dry
little
Lakes
processing plant right on the fence line where you just send them through the processing plant in a humane way. Sorry, I'm not trying to sound inhumane.
We understand.
And then vacuum seal and put it right there on the fence, But I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Right.
That's
That's
interesting.
brand new. Yeah.
So-
right at the lodge, there's a restaurant.
Which restaurant?
So it's the Brian Head Resort owns a hotel that used to be called the Best Western. I think it's called the Brian Head Resort now.
Oh, okay.
It's down the street from the Cedar Breaks.
Yeah.
And they serve a hamburger with a Dry Lakes patty and cheese from the Beaver Creamery and
Oh,
a Dry
wow.
Lakes bacon, among
man.
other things. It's just
Oh,
it's
so
a
you do
really
pork
beautiful
as well.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we serve pork.
okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
she loves ground beef. A lot of people do. A lot of people just buy ground beef. It's what fits their budget. It's a nutrient dense food that all of their kids will eat. Their elderly mothers will eat it. It's a great product.
What cuts do you normally put in your ground beef? Some are particular about what they put in.
Right.
She
ground
is
beef.
very
Right.
particular
Yeah.
about what goes into her ground beef.
So our ground beef is only made from the trim of these prime steers.
Okay.
So we never ever grind, an old or diseased animal or, that legitimately is what you're getting when you get cheap ground beef
It
at
really
any
is.
other
You're
place.
getting there's a reason
in
it's
the little
cheap.
plastic things that look like a tube. Yeah, plastic
It's in
tube
a
ground
tube.
beef.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a reason.
Oh, that's why it's
cheap.
so cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
humane.
Yeah, we really in the United States, we ship out and export all of our prime beef and import some of the lowest quality beef
And we
found
sell
in
it
the
to
world
us.
and sell it as ground beef
that's
in the
appalling.
United States. Yeah. So the ground beef sold at our store is at $8.09 if you're paying cash. And it is prime. It is comparable to some of the highest quality chuck blend, I would say, or it is just a prime ground beef.
Some people come in because they have been told to eat meat by doctors. Thank God they're telling people to eat meat now. But it's the only
Balanced
thing they
diet.
can eat. And they're reintroducing things to their diet after chemotherapy or whatever, varying. So we're just really proud to be able to offer something that costs $9 a pound. You don't have to have a lot of money to be able to afford
Yeah.
the good quality stuff.
We do. We have some women, like we have a woman right now who is reversing, is it MS that she's got, Jess? Yeah.
There are
She
tons of
has
people that are so grateful, and we're so grateful that they come. But
That's great.
They have serious health problems, and it's helping them. We make fresh broth every week. We sell
Like bone broth.
bone broth.
Right.
Okay.
It's like a superfood.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like-
some of the
and we make it
major
for
health
you.
buffs.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
People should go and buy it like crazy. I don't know why they don't.
It's
but
not even a broth. At first, we started calling it a broth,
it's
but
gelatin.
it's
like
solid.
a bowl of Jello.
So I love ribs, and I kind
yeah.
of
We love
overdid it
ribs,
when I
too.
was living in Florida because it's very southern there. But I've only had beef ribs a couple of times, and
I had never had them until.
I about died
Yeah,
when
so
I
good,
ate it.
huh?
I was like, well, steak on a stick.
And it's just a thing you can put in the crock pot and walk away from
Yeah.
if you want to. It's
you want-
awesome.
Do you want to know why those are so good?
Why is that?
Full of fat.
This is going to blow your mind. Fat and connective tissue.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
When you render connective tissue down, it turns to this sticky
Gristly.
collagen.
Oh,
No, gristly is what like tendon.
Yeah.
That's where that comes
But
from.
if
is
you
like a
render
tendon.
that down, if you give it time and temperature enough to cook it down, it turns to collagen and it turns to a sticky fat, and it is a
That's why your
silky,
kids like
beautiful.
those free steaks we give them because
Yeah.
they have that fat on it.
huh.
It's a beautiful mouthfeel.
Man,
It's
I'm
good.
glad I'm going to lunch after this podcast.
It's good and good for you.
We eat a lot. I eat all day, every day at work. It's pretty great.
That's great.
Kind of have to. I'm looking at it.
So do you ground the beef or do you have Springville?
Springville Meats does all
does
of
your
that.
ground.
Under
Okay.
federal
Do it all.
inspection.
Okay, awesome.
People assume I'm this like cool butcher. I'm not. I'm not. I can't do that.
I was hoping.
I don't do. I know.
Yeah.
It comes to me in a
I was hoping you guys were going to come in your aprons and stuff.
We employ some people that are really interested in that, and that's awesome because Kacie supports all of us in our weird little dreams.
Yeah.
But no, we don't butcher.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I did some butchering
It's my
in
dream to
college.
talk to people.
So you'd think I would know more of all the technical stuff, but you don't. Like when you get in there, you learn how to cut the meats and do what you need to and stuff, and clean the table and do the prep stuff and all of that. But well, cool. Well, let's talk now about your shop. It's this cute little boutique
We love our
right
shop.
there on the heart of Parowan on Main Street. They're historic in downtown, historic Main Street. Tell us about what's offering at the shop, because it's much more than just the fresh cut beef, right?
Right. We've designed it to be a meat counter that is approachable for everybody.
It's literally just like this.
Yeah.
If you came in and when you wanted to know anything, we would talk. We're happy to talk to you. It's really important to us to educate anybody that wants to hear about where it comes from, why it's healthy, how to cook it. So we do that a lot. People come, college kids, young kids, 10-year-olds that are enthusiastic about cooking. So it's kind of an experience, and more than just a place to shop. People bring their families when they come to visit. People will bring their entire family into our shop regularly, and we love it. It's so cute. They take pictures outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They visit. It's warm in there. We let their kids run around. We look the other way when they're
What kind of other things you guys selling?
Well, it's become a destination, I feel like, not just because it's a local product, but because of some of the other stuff that we offer. So
the Utah local honey, like we were talking about, the Lovels, they're a huge part of the farming ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
We sell their honey. We sell Redmond salt, Redmond, Utah. That salt mine out of Red. It's been there for I don't know how long.
yeah, that salt is mined from the ancient Lake Bonneville.
Our meat actually has the Utah's own label now. Casey's got the. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You'll see it on the grocery store, the little Utah's own label.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a heavy emphasis on Utah grown products and Utah.
But you also sell
everything.
like soaps.
We sell
and
retail
other
too. Our
things.
skincare. It's made out of tallow.
Okay.
The tallow from
you
our
talked about
beef.
tallow?
Tallow.
Tallow?
I have an accent.
I'm ignorant.
But it's TALLOW.
No, an accent is like tallow.
That was a good one. I like that.
Tell me what that is. You mentioned that earlier, and you said cook it in tallow or butter.
Rendered kidney fat from the steers.
Right.
We get it in the raw form in a package that you can buy and render it yourself, which is really popular for people making all the skincare.
It's like a better version of lard or something.
It's
Just beef.
the same thing. It's beef lard from the kidney fat.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Yep.
So that's what people used to make soap and things out of before we invented 10 million chemicals and Procter and Gamble owned everything.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool because almost everybody can use it in our experience, kids, babies, it's just not full of chemicals, and everything is full of chemicals. And so a lot of our pride comes from not polluting the world with more chemicals.
So where do you get your soaps and the skin products? Is there someone else local business or you do it?
Yeah. So there's a family that came into our shop and was starting to buy a lot of our tallow. We have it
We
like
sell
just
it in a 4-pound tub, and it
Yeah.
goes like crazy.
Really?
All
we
the
had
time.
it.
How much is a 4-pound tub?
$26.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
You just keep it refrigerated or?
yeah.
Okay.
You can cook with it too. You can cook it at a really high heat. So when you're cooking your steaks, that's why I said I put it in the frying pan with tallow.
Yeah.
Just a little spoon because you can just sear it and it doesn't go bad or taste bad like other
Spoonful of
oils will.
Tallow helps
Makes
the steak
medicine
go down.
Yeah.
Although steak goes down easy without it. But
Steak, steak is medicine.
and you can make it into lotion. And so
So
they
tell
were-
about this soap.
They were coming in and buying a lot of tallow, and we asked what they were doing, and the woman said, "I used to be in the skincare industry, and I started my own more clean, more organic
Product.
product, skincare line. And I have found that your tallow behaves differently than any other tallow I've ever used.
Really?
And I said, how do I get our own line? And she does it for us. We've got
so
10,
it's your line that she produces for you.
Yeah.
Exclusively and sold in our store. She has an actual biggest.
Right.
So even your soaps is utilizing the cattle that you're raising.
Yes.
That
It's
is
made out of
so
the
cool.
beef
I
fat.
didn't know that.
And people love it. It's good for their skin. It's affordable, especially compared to other skincare products.
Sure.
Yeah, we've
It's
got
exciting stuff.
10 different scents, and then one is unscented. And there's a soap, a shampoo, a conditioner, a sugar scrub. No, what is it? Walnut scrub.
Rub. Yeah.
Walnut shell,
Yeah,
Do you sell
Walnut
online
shell.
too?
yeah.
We do offer shipping.
Where do you, just from
Lotion.
your website, or you use Amazon or any of those things too?
No,
We do
just
it
our
ourselves.
website. Yeah,
We do
Gotcha.
everything.
we do everything the hard way ourselves.
That's funny when people come into the shop, if there happens to be no one there, and they kind of wonder, like, what do you do all day? It's like,
Yeah.
we do literally everything. That's what we do all day if we're not out here selling you meat.
We just wait for you to ring the bell.
Yeah, we just stand there and wait. No. That's pretty great.
So now tell me just what other things I've taken you in a lot of digressive roads with
That's okay.
fun intention. What other things do you want to tell about Dry Lakes Ranch beef and what you guys are doing as a company, as a business?
I think that she should mention, she's humble, so she won't, but she is supporting quite a few families there in Parowan, mine at least. Job skills and just empowering a lot of us over there that otherwise had to go and work in Cedar City. Myself, I've worked in Cedar City for years and I was not a huge fan. I work 5 blocks from home, but
you weren't a fan of commuting. You wanted to work
not
and
of
live in your
commuting.
community.
I wanted to live. I wanted to work where I lived. But I came in just as somebody asking actually about the organic grass-fed beef. That was my first question to Kacie, and so she educated me. And then here we all are. It's just a spreading effect of knowledge on healthy, sustainable food, which is important. You know.
Now here you are on a podcast.
Yeah, and now
spreading that same.
and that's how people find out, and so we're really proud of that. So good job, Kacie.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, you've got your little notebook of all
She's
the
always
thoughts
got
that
a
you've
notebook.
had. So what's left on your little notepad that
Yeah.
you thought, I want to touch on this. I want people to know about this,
You're
right?
pretty writing too.
Yeah. I think,
You have beautiful handwriting, by the way.
thank you. You know, the biggest thing that we've touched on, you were right about this. You said that we would, in conversation, touch on everything.
Yeah. I like to really glean it out, you know?
Yeah, we did. I think the biggest thing is that your local farmers and ranchers are your responsible local farmers and ranchers are taking care of the ecosystem in a way that we need to appreciate, know, and understand. You know, we touched on it a little bit, and I'd like to go back to that
Please, yeah.
a little bit more because, you know, there's people that are wanting to eat American grown beef. That prime stuff that I was saying gets exported.
Yeah.
There's kind
They
of a
think they are,
revival.
and they're not, and it's not fair. It needs to be more transparent.
Right.
We're really
you're
proud
right.
of our transparency because the food system is unstable, and these are our families. You know, that what's more important than what you eat
Right. Yeah.
to us? Not a lot.
It's huge,
Our
yeah.
land and our food.
Yeah.
There was so much sadness that came from COVID, but there was also some good.
Mhm.
And I think one of the good that came from COVID was a revival in people wanting to know where their food was coming from
Mhm.
and wanting to get back to the basics and wellness and maybe even freedom.
People were connecting with the
They
outdoors.
want to be more responsible for their
Yeah.
family's health because
Yeah,
they saw
That's
how
what it is. Yep.
Well, what I was going to say,
fragile it can be sometimes, and how little help you can get sometimes, so they want to be more responsible.
well, I think in general, people were, and I started to say people were connecting with the outdoors, but people were connecting with nature.
Remember trampolines sold out everywhere? They totally were connecting more. I was one of those people. I tried to buy a trampoline on this.
But it went in so many directions, from nature to, like you said, what are we putting in our bodies? Is it more natural? There really was this cool kind of movement where we were, because we had been stuck on social media and all these different things so much. People just wanted to get out and connect in a real way, which I think was good for society. Not COVID
answers.
maybe wasn't good for society, but people wanted to connect in a real way, from everything from their walk to their social interactions to the food that they were consuming, right?
I think people were a little bit nicer to each other, at least for a while after COVID. They were like, "Oh my God, people again!" Like,
and so what I am saying about that is that now people are thinking about their food, and so we're seeing a revival with people wanting
each other a little bit more. The push for local support is awesome. That's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
But people are wanting more, what you were getting at.
Yeah, more local foods, right? And with that comes support for your farmers and ranchers, right? And that is a good thing, especially when those people own properties. Okay. We love to see open spaces. We love to see fields and farms, and go up to the mountain and see beautiful aspen groves and beautiful meadows and ponds that are healthy, and wildlife. We love to see mule deer, healthy herds of mule deer and Rocky Mountain elk and trout, and turkeys and things like that. And I just want to let everybody know that far and away, the people that are helping the wildlife and helping the soils and the forests and things like that, as much as, if not more than, the federal government, is the farmers and ranchers that are responsibly managing those lands.
Yeah.
And in order to keep those people doing what they're doing, you have to support those people. And so that means buying their product.
Yeah.
And so if you can buy meat from your local ranchers, or
you got to put your money where your mouth is.
You really do have to. And so, but it doesn't just mean that you have to buy direct from them, at least buy American beef, because there's so many cow-calf operations that are selling their calves at yearling age, and then they're being shipped to feedlots. That's fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then they're still staying in business. Do support at least those people, because our public lands are being used to raise those calves. Those cow-calf pairs are being put on public lands. And those public lands...
Our resources, our water, our...
Yeah, those public lands that aren't viable for really much of anything else are being managed by the rancher, right? And if there's not management of those public lands, then we have problems with wildfire.
Or they just sell it to developers, and then we have more...
Or invasive species like cheatgrass, or other problem animals. There's problem animals that we don't think about that can decimate the lands, that don't move during delicate times of the year like cattle or sheep do. And then we also have problems with, in my opinion, government agencies that can come in and decide that it's going to be non-use anymore. And so I think it's important to support.
Agriculture is a better use than non-use, that's for sure.
Agriculture is important. And I just really hope that locals and people that aren't necessarily considering themselves local, that are moving to our area, know and understand the importance of farmers and ranchers in this area, because they are vital to our ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we need future. There's got to be kids that are interested in this because there's not a lot of people interested in farming.
It's hard to stay
I
in
myself,
this industry.
I don't work at the farm. I work in the store. Like that's hard work, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess
That's where our food comes from.
To kind of wrap up, there's two things I want to do. First, I want to say thank you for coming on, helping our audience learn more, not just about Dry Lakes Ranch beef and your shop, but about the process. And what I want to say for our audience is, if you don't know or you want to learn more,
We'll tell you all about it.
Whether you're here locally and going down to Dry Lakes Ranch and talking to Kacie or Jessica, you can, or if you're somewhere else, go talk to your ranchers. It's some of the most educational thing. You don't always have to agree politics and all those other things, but help better understand that process will help you better appreciate what you're consuming, right? And so that was a little random monologue at the end there. But the last thing I want to do, tell people where they can find you, both your online or in person.
Online, drylakesranchbeef.com, or in person, Parowan's Historic Main Street, Parowan, Utah.
What's
73 North
73
Main?
North Main. Yeah. Yep.
73 North Main in Parowan, Utah.
Yeah.
So, well, Kacie, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on here, representing Dry Lakes Ranch beef very well in Iron County very well.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.